I woke before dawn, the way I always did. The house was quiet, too quiet, but I told myself that was about to change. Today was Thanksgiving. Today, my daughter was coming home. I stood in the kitchen for a long moment, listening to the soft hum of the refrigerator and the ticking clock on the wall. The same clock I'd bought when she was 10, back when time felt endless and forgiveness came easily. I rolled up my sleeves, tied my old apron around my waist, and got to work. The turkey was the first thing into the oven. I had chosen the biggest one at the store, even though the cashier joked it was too much for 3 people. I smiled and paid anyway. I wanted abundance. I wanted warmth. I wanted her to feel, even for a few hours, like she still belonged here. As the turkey roasted, I peeled potatoes slowly, my hands aching but steady. I remembered how she used to sit on the counter when she was little, legs swinging, stealing slices when she thought I wasn't looking. I could almost hear her laughter echoing in the room, bright and careless. I made her favorite stuffing extra sage, just the way she liked it. Cranberry sauce from scratch, pumpkin pie with real cream, not the cheap kind. I cooked like someone who believed love could still be tasted. By noon, the house smelled like memory. I cleaned the dining room carefully, smoothing the tablecloth with both hands. It was the good one, white with tiny embroidered flowers, my wife's favorite. I hadn't used it since she passed. I placed 3 plates on the table, 3 sets of silverware, 3 glasses, 1 chair for me, 1 for my daughter, 1 for her husband. I even lit candles, though I told myself not to be foolish. Still, I wanted it to feel special. I wanted her to walk in and think, asterisk, he still tries. Asterisk, at 3 o'clock, I checked the window for the first time. At 4, I checked my phone, nothing. I told myself traffic was bad. I told myself flights were delayed. I told myself not to let old fears crawl back into my chest. 5 o'clock came. The turkey was perfect, golden, steaming, ready. I set it on the table, my hands shaking slightly as I adjusted the platter. I poured water into 3 glasses, straightened the napkins again, even though they were already straight. 6 o'clock. The candles burned lower. I sat down in my chair, listening to the clock tick louder than it ever had before. Each second felt heavier, like it was pressing against my ribs. I picked up my phone again. Still nothing. By 7, the food had begun to cool. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was sharp. It cut into me, reminding me of every unanswered call, every visit postponed, every time I had been told, asterisk, we're busy, Dad. Asterisk, then my phone buzzed. My heart jumped so hard it hurt. I smiled before I even read it. 1 message from my daughter. I opened it. Asterisk, asterisk, old man, we flew to Europe to get away from you. Asterisk, asterisk, the words didn't make sense at first. I read them again. And again, slowly, like maybe rearranging them would soften their meaning. They didn't. There was no apology. No explanation. No happy Thanksgiving. Just cruelty wrapped in casual indifference. I stared at the screen for a long time. I thought about the night I stayed awake in a hospital chair when she had a fever at 6 years old. The way she used to call me her hero. The years I worked late so she'd never feel less than anyone else. And suddenly the house felt enormous. I stood up, my legs stiff, and began clearing the table. I wrapped the untouched food carefully, almost tenderly, like it still mattered. Like asterisk, I asterisk still mattered. I blew out the candles one by one. The smoke curled upward, then vanished. The table was empty, so was the house, and somewhere deep inside me, something finally went quiet. I slept surprisingly well that night. No dreams, no replaying of her message. Just a deep, heavy sleep, like my body had finally decided to rest after carrying too much for too long. When morning came, the pain was still there, but it had changed. It wasn't sharp anymore. It was settled. Certain, I made my coffee the way I always did, black and strong, and sat at the kitchen table where the Thanksgiving dishes had been only hours before. The house looked the same, but I didn't. Something inside me had shifted like a door quietly closing. For years I had blamed myself. Maybe I called too often. Maybe I expected too much. Maybe love, in her eyes, had started to feel like a burden. I had bent and softened and apologized for things I didn't even understand, all to keep a place in her life. But her message had done something strange. It had stripped away my confusion. I wasn't unwanted because I was unlovable. I was unwanted because I was no longer useful. I walked into my study, a room I rarely entered anymore. Dust clung to the shelves, but everything was exactly where I had left it. Folders neatly labeled, documents carefully organized. A lifetime of responsibility tucked away behind closed doors. I sat down at the desk and opened the top drawer. Inside was a single business card. I stared at it for a moment, then picked up the phone. He answered on the second ring. "I was wondering when you'd call," he said calmly. "I didn't want to believe I'd need to," I replied. There was a pause, not awkward, respectful. "Has something changed?" he asked. "Yes." I said. "Everything." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't sound angry. That was the part that surprised me most. My hands were steady. My heart was steady. Years of swallowing hurt had taught me how to speak without shaking. "She's gone," I continued, "and she made it clear she doesn't want me in her life." Another pause. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'm not," I replied. "I just want to be done." He understood immediately. We went through the details slowly, carefully. Names, accounts, documents. The trust I had set up when she was a teenager. The one I never told her about because I believed humility was a virtue. The joint credit line, the apartment lease I had quietly signed so she could live comfortably without worrying. They didn't notice at first. Europe had welcomed them with open arms, cobblestone streets, cafe mornings, careless laughter posted online for everyone to see. Smiling photos, raised glasses, captions about asterisk, freedom asterisk and asterisk, finally living asterisk. From a distance it looked like joy. I knew better. Joy doesn't need to be proven. 3 days after my phone call, the first crack appeared. It happened in a small restaurant, somewhere between sightseeing and self-congratulation. They ordered without looking at prices. They never did. When the bill came, my son-in-law slid his card across the table with the confidence of a man who had never had to worry. The waiter returned moments later, apologetic. "I'm sorry, sir. The card was declined." My daughter laughed. "Try it again." Declined. Another card. Declined. The laughter faded. They paid in cash too much of it, and walked out in silence, irritation simmering beneath their steps. They blamed the bank, a system error, time zones, nothing worth calling me about. I didn't notice the number at first. The phone had been buzzing all day on the counter while I cooked, on the table while I read, on the nightstand, and while I rested my eyes. I had learned to let it vibrate without reaching for it. Silence, I discovered, could be chosen. That evening, as the sun sank low and painted the room in soft gold, I finally picked it up. Asterisk asterisk 37 missed calls. Asterisk asterisk I stared at the number for a long moment, feeling no rush of triumph, no bitterness. Just a quiet heaviness like closing a book you once loved. I opened the voicemails. The first few were cautious. "Dad, it's me, just checking in." Then confusion. "Something's going on with the accounts. Call me, okay." Then fear. "My cards aren't working. I don't understand." By the 10th message, her voice cracked. By the 15th, she was crying openly, apologizing without quite saying what she was sorry for. Her husband's voice followed in others, sharp, demanding, then desperate. He spoke about inconvenience, about stress, about how unfair asterisk it all was. Only near the end did I hear something real. "Dad," she whispered in the 36th voicemail, her voice smaller than I remembered. "I didn't mean what I said. I was angry. I shouldn't have talked to you like that. Please, please call me back." I set the phone down. I thought of the empty table, the cold turkey, the candles burning down while I waited like a guest in my own home. I thought of how easily she had dismissed me with a single sentence, how she had chosen distance without a second thought. And I realized something painful but freeing. She wasn't calling because she missed me. She was calling because she needed me. There is a difference. I walked to the window and looked out at the quiet street. Somewhere, families were gathering. Somewhere, children were laughing. Somewhere, forgiveness was being offered freely. But forgiveness, I had learned, doesn't mean returning to the same place you were hurt. I picked up my phone one last time and typed a message. I erased it, typed again, then finally sent only this, *I love you. But I will not be spoken to with cruelty. I hope one day you understand what you lost before you asked for it back. *, I turned the phone off. That night I slept deeply. In the days that followed, the calls stopped. Life became quieter, lighter. I filled my time with small joys, morning walks, books I had meant to read, conversations with people who didn't make me feel like a burden. I still loved my daughter. I always would. But love, I learned, doesn't require self-erasure. And sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't watching someone fall at standing tall, when they finally look back and realize you're no longer waiting at an empty table. Yet, the next morning, they woke to emails. *account access temporarily restricted. *, please contact your financial institution. * they called the bank. Long waits, polite voices, vague explanations. Your father's authorization is no longer valid. The words hit her like a slap. What do you mean? She demanded. He's always authorized. I'm sorry, ma'am. The woman repeated gently. That has changed. My daughter hung up and stared at the hotel wall, her stomach tight with something she hadn't felt in years. Uncertainty. By day 5, the apartment they were staying in became a problem. The lease my lease had been quietly amended. Payments no longer processed. The owner wanted answers. Her husband's confidence cracked first. His jokes grew sharp. His patience thin. The trip they had bragged about started to feel smaller by the hour. And still, no call to me. Pride is stubborn like that. Then the trust documents arrived. Emails she didn't understand. Legal language she had never bothered to read before. Words like revocation, *, restructuring and sole beneficiary removed *. She read them twice, then a third time. Her hands shook. That was when she called me. I didn't answer. She called again and again. Left a voicemail, this time light, casual, pretending nothing was wrong. Hey, Dad, call me when you get this, okay? Another day passed. The money dwindled. The credit disappeared. Reality closed in like winter. The next voicemail was different. Dad, something's wrong. I need you to call me. By the end of the week, the calls were coming in waves. Missed calls stacking up on my screen while I lived my quiet, unbothered days. She cried in some of them. In others, her husband yelled about misunderstandings, about fairness, about family. Family. The word sounded different when spoken out of desperation. One message stood out. I don't understand why you're doing this, she sobbed. We just needed space. Space. That's what she had asked for, and space is exactly what I gave. I sat in my living room that evening, the phone vibrating beside me, and realized something important. This wasn't revenge. This was consequence. For years, she had mistaken my silence for weakness, my generosity for obligation. My love for something she could discard without cost. Now she was learning the truth. Love given freely can be taken away just as quietly. And somewhere across an ocean, my daughter was finally feeling what it meant to stand without the man she had pushed away. Every safety net, every silent sacrifice, I didn't ask to punish her. I asked to step back to remove my name. My backing, my protection, what about access? He asked. Freeze it. I said, effective immediately. There was no hesitation in my voice. He promised it would be handled within the week. When I hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall. I expected guilt to rush in, fear, regret. None came instead. I felt something unfamiliar, relief. For the first time since my wife passed, I wasn't holding my breath, waiting for someone to decide whether I was worth loving. I stood up, opened the curtains, and let the morning light fill the room. Outside, the world was going on as it always had, cars passing, leaves falling, people living. And for the first time in years, I felt like I had permission to live too. That afternoon I went for a walk. I passed houses filled with noise and laughter, and I didn't envy them. I wasn't angry. I was simply done being invisible. Back home, I cooked a small dinner just for myself. Simple, honest, no extra plates, no waiting. Before bed, I checked my phone. Still no message from her. I placed it face down on the nightstand, and the phone call had been made. The rest was no longer in my hands.